I'm Blake Giles.
I'm Jim Hardin.
It's Sidelines.
And Headlines.
And we're here to talk about college football. And gosh, there's nothing to talk about, is there, Jim?
I don't think there's ever been more to talk about on a weekend, this past weekend.
Well, we do want to apologize. We did an issue last week, and we had microphone failure. We had a great discussion with Chip Towers, retired journalist from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and maybe we'll have Chip on another time. But it just, with a short week, we just didn't have time to put another.
We have Chip back. We're going to take him to the Hilltop Grill and buy him a steak.
There you go. That's right. Well, last week was a big week in college football. It's called Rivalry Week, and your team didn't do so well.
They didn't. They actually probably played okay under the circumstances. Driving the ball at the end of the game, their best player fumbled the ball, and that was it. But
I didn't think your wide receivers gave your quarterback much help the whole game.
He didn't. I don't understand. You know, that Cam Coleman, the kid that fumbled, he's a great player. It didn't seem like they really went to him enough. Or when he did get it, he didn't have a lot of operating room. But we got us a new coach now that we're back. I know we'll talk about the coaching changes.
Yeah. Well, did you watch the Georgia Tech game?
I did. I watched most of it.
It was an underwhelming performance by Georgia, and particularly by Gunnar Stockton. He threw for less than 100 yards in the game as far as passing. Ironically, the one touchdown was a pass. Great play by Zachariah Branch, who made a great move. And Georgia was able to pull it out 16-9. Certainly not it's not going to be a classic that everybody remembers, but it kept Georgia in good place, good position. And then, of course, the dominoes fell, and now they get to play again this week against their favorite opponent, Alabama, in the SEC championship game.
They're booger bear. That game is the Tech Georgia game. I think was a good example of how red zone scoring touchdowns in the red zone is important. I mean, Tech. I knew when Tech. Kicking field goals.
Yeah.
They couldn't win the game kicking field goals.
Well, I think Georgia's one of the best in the country as far as percentage of red zone possessions that end in touchdowns. But of course they only got the one TD, but it was enough to get that 16-9 win.
Well, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I know we got a lot to talk about. I don't want my ADD to kick in and bounce around. But what do you think? Does the way they played on offense this week, mean anything against Alabama? I mean, is there going to be something that Bama looks at the film at whatever Tech was doing on defense and that helps them this week, or do you think?
Obviously all teams piggyback off what other teams have been able to do to be successful. But then coaches say, well, they're going to do this, so we got to react. It's a chess game. It always is a chess game. And, of course, the biggest thing they'll be looking at is the film from the last game that they played each other to really give themselves a good indication of how they're going to do. But, we'll talk about that Georgia-Alabama game later on. The other big game this weekend that was a surprise was, of course, the Texas win over Texas A&M. I was at a high school football game, so I did not see much of that game. I don't know how much of it you watched. Did Texas – I don't think they dominated the game, but and I'm not even sure to say they won convincingly, but it was no fluke.
It wasn't. As much as I love football, when I start watching at noon, sometimes I can't quite make it till midnight. I watched most of it. It didn't surprise me. I almost thought A&M. I mean, A&M's good. They're probably the kind of team they play good. They can beat anybody. But it was just like it was time. I admire the fact Texas, I thought they might have kind of thrown in the towel a little bit. They won. Now they're trying to lobby for the playoff.
And maybe they've got 3 losses, and we'll talk about whether they belong in the playoffs, but that certainly opened up that discussion. How about Florida beating Florida State?
Well, they put it on
decisively, 40-21.
I think Florida State, they got a mess down there. I'm not sure what's going on. But.
Well, we talked about this last week and about how Georgia, in a sense, broke Florida State.
They did.
Now, everybody remembers the 63-3 beatdown in the Orange Bowl. But, of course, Florida State, a lot of their players had opted out by then. It was not a true representation of that team that was 13-0 going into that game. But I think Georgia broke them earlier by losing to Alabama. And as I said last week, if Georgia beats Alabama last year, then you've got the SEC with an undefeated conference champion. You've got the ACC,
Yep.
undefeated conference championship. The Big Ten, undefeated conference champion in Michigan. Pac-12, you remember them?
Yeah,
Undefeated
I
conference
remember them.
champion in Washington. And the committee says, we got 4 undefeated conference champions. That's who's going to go into the playoffs.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if the Florida State quarterback got hurt.
Yep.
They put him in. But because Georgia lost and Alabama became a one-loss conference champion from the SEC, you know the SEC's getting in.
Yep.
Well, Alabama lost earlier to Texas, who only had one loss. So now they had a head-to-head matchup, they had to deal with it, and they came up, I think it was a rationale they came up with to say, Florida State lost their starting quarterback, they're not the same team, ergo they get bumped.
I agree.
So if Georgia beats Alabama,
I agree totally.
Florida State
With
was
your point.
in the playoffs, and it would maybe things break differently. The next year they're 2-10. You know who their wins were the next year?
I forgot, but
They beat California. It was like 14-9, and then they beat Charleston Southern. And then this year they are 5-7. They beat Alabama. How'd they do that?
I don't know. I still can't figure that one out.
They beat East Texas A&M. I didn't even know there was an East Texas A&M. Kent State, Wake Forest, and Virginia Tech. And now they're 5-7. And they've already said, Mike Norvell, you're coming back next year.
Well, Steve Spurrier poked at him today. He said, they want to get rid of their coach. They just can't afford to get rid of him. But then he kind of said, he said, we, Florida, thank goodness we were able to pay our guy to go away.
They've not won a road game since they beat Florida the last time in 2023.
Oh, my gosh, really?
Yeah. So that's 2 years without a road game. Then Clemson beat South Carolina 28-14. And that makes Clemson, I think they're 7-5 this.
They are.
No, 8-4 maybe.
No, they're 7-5.
7-5.
Yeah. You know what I thought about when I was watching that game? We were talking early in the year, and you said, who's going to be? Are you going to be better or worse? And you went through the list. Everybody thought South Carolina, was going to be a team. Everybody can't win every week, and they seem like they got their share of the losses this year. They just couldn't.
Well, that's right. Last year they were almost in the playoffs.
They were
last year, and of course I haven't seen all their games this year, but Lennar Sellis was a popular name last year. This guy's a budding star, and I think he had kind of a, would you say, an average season at best? Nothing that stood out.
He had a little injury earlier, but they just looked out of sync all year.
Yeah, I mean they almost. I mean they had some losses that were close. Missouri loss was 29-20. Lost to Alabama 29-22, and they blew a big lead to lose to Texas A&M 31-30. I mean, if they win those games instead of being 4-8, then they're 7-5. Not a great year, but still not as disastrous. I don't know if that means next year Shane Beamer's on the quote hot seat or not.
I think he will be. The AD was pretty emphatic about the fact he wanted him back next year, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Then Ole Miss beat Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl, and that was pretty decisive win. Not
it was close for a while. They kind of pulled away like you thought they might.
Yeah, and of course that's the last happiness that Ole Miss fans have had over the weekend by winning that game. We said nobody in the South cares about it, but Arizona beat Arizona State 23-7. Arizona State last year playoff team.
Yeah.
And now this year they get beat by their cross-state rival, Ohio State, after 4 straight losses. Beat Michigan.
Did you watch any of that?
I watched some of it.
They kind of stumbled around a little bit early, but then they kind of showed that they were the best team, I think.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then Louisville just boat raced Kentucky 41-0. And I guess maybe that was a last step for getting Mark Stoops out the door. I don't know.
Kirby Smart's now the dean of SEC coaches.
That's right.
Mark Stoops is gone.
And then the other game, Vanderbilt over Tennessee, 45-24. They just dominated the second half.
I did. Did you watch that? I watched it. That was impressive. I mean, they're not the Vanderbilt that we
Look, if I had a Heisman Trophy vote, Diego Pavia's getting my vote.
He's something.
I mean, that guy has single-handedly resurrected a program that was moribund at best.
Well, he's good. I agree with you, but they've got some other.
Oh yeah,
players.
it's not a one-man show.
Yeah, I mean they're they're players, athletes all over the field that are, you just kind of watch closely and you say, these guys are going toe-to-toe in these individual matchups with these Tennessee guys that supposedly are we used to historically being better.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to one other, to this weekend now, the conference championships. And how much will they factor into the college football playoffs and all of that? And the one that could factor the most is maybe the most surprising matchup is the Atlantic Coast Conference, 7-5 Duke against Virginia. Now, I watched that SMU-Cal game, and SMU had a chance to tie it late and was just wide on a field goal to get it to overtime. And so if they'd have won that game, it'd been SMU-Virginia in the championship game, and there would not be quite as much hand-wringing going on.
Yeah.
But if Duke were to win that game against Virginia, there's a chance that ACC doesn't get into the college football playoffs. They're not guaranteed a slot. It's the 5 highest-ranked conference champions.
So they could be conference champions and not be one of the...
Yeah. So here's the others that could be in there. North Texas is at Tulane in the American Athletic Conference. North Texas is not ranked. Tulane is ranked number 24. Of course, they just lost their coach. Then you got the Mountain West has 2 unranked teams, UNLV at Boise State. So it could be that if Duke wins, both of those teams could actually be ranked higher than Duke, and the ACC's champion doesn't get in. Now, does Miami make it? That's another question. We'll get to that in a minute. But Virginia beat them earlier this year, 34-17. So it would really be a doomsday scenario if Duke wins the game. And if Virginia wins, kudos to Carla Williams. Do you know Carla? She's the athletic director at Virginia. She came up in the Georgia program. She played basketball for Andy Landers, and she was an associate athletic director for many years. She's a great lady, and so kudos to her if they can win that ACC championship.
I don't know her, but that is a great...
She's a fine lady. Maybe we'll get to connect with her somewhere down the line everywhere, but congratulations to her. Well, the other big games, you got the Big Ten, Ohio State, Indiana. It's pecking order, but both of those teams are going to get in. There's no question about that. 2 undefeated teams. Are they the 2 best teams in the country? Well, they're ranked there.
I'm actually kind of excited about watching that game.
I think it will be a good game.
I mean, it's prime time in SEC. By that time in the day, Georgia will probably be SEC champion.
Well, we hope so. We hope so. You got Texas Tech against BYU in the Big 12 championship, and Texas Tech is probably jumping up to number 4 this week, which would be a first-round bye in the playoffs if the rankings carried forward to that final week. But BYU is still 11. If they win, they're going to be in.
Yeah, they're going to be in, yep.
And now they played earlier this year, and Texas Tech won 29-7. So you've got to figure Texas Tech.
Who beat Texas Tech?
Texas Tech lost to Arizona State.
That's right.
Only game that they lost this year. And it was a close game. And then that gets us to the SEC championship. Georgia against Alabama. How do you feel? I mean, you're not a Georgia guy. You've watched Georgia fans with their anxiety at playing Alabama.
Well, Auburn fans, we've had some anxiety playing them.
Everybody's got anxiety about playing Alabama, to tell you the truth. I mean,
what do you think? I think Georgia's going to win, but I thought they were going to win earlier in the year too. And I think a lot of people, there's been 4 or 5 times over the last several years when I thought they were going to beat Alabama and they didn't. I thought they would have a better chance of beating Alabama in a rematch than they would beating Ole Miss in a rematch. Ole Miss with Lane Kiffen and not a program in chaos.
Right.
I thought that would have been tougher for Georgia. I think it sets up good for Georgia. I can't explain how Alabama did what they did the first time. What do you think?
Well, it's odd that there have been so many close games, and Alabama seems to figure out a way to come out on top and all but won the game in Indianapolis. I mean, they bring Tua Tagovailoa off the bench, and he throws a touchdown on 4th and 26. And then the next year they bring Jalen Hurts off the bench, and he rattles them in the 4th quarter. And then you get to playing over there in the COVID year, and it was a close game until late, and then Alabama kind of pulls away. Then the next time they play, I guess is when Georgia, the first half was just in shambles. No, actually, the next time would have been in 21. They lost in the SEC championship, and then beat them in Indianapolis.
Lost big in the SEC championship.
That's right.
Alabama sort of blew them out.
And then won in the rematch in Indianapolis. And then you see them play in the COVID year. Well, that was the COVID year first before that. But then you see them play with the game over in Alabama in 24, and the first half.
Alabama just blew
but then Georgia comes back and goes ahead late.
Took the lead.
And they throw that touchdown pass to Ryan Williams. And by the way, what's happened to him?
I was just thinking about him. He didn't catch a ball, I don't think, against Auburn.
He seems to have disappeared.
Well,
maybe he was a preteen phenom. Maybe he's aged out of effectiveness.
Yeah, they kept saying over and over again how young he was.
Yeah.
Maybe he peaked early, like I did. I was a great player in the 8th grade, Blake. My life's been downhill
I peaked late. I'm still waiting for my peak. But, so they've been so many close games, and it just seems like Alabama has just managed to win. And the game in Athens earlier this year, 24-21.
I still can't explain that. I mean, the final score was pretty close.
Yeah.
But when I watching that game, it was like Alabama just carved them up.
Oh, yeah. The third down conversion rate was off the charts.
Yeah.
Georgia could not get off the field defensively. And they were lucky to hold them, I think, to 24 points in a way. But then, Georgia, they dropped a touchdown pass, a sure touchdown pass that would have changed the game perhaps. But
Are you going?
No, I'm not going. I've only been to one SEC championship game since they've started all the way back in 92. I went in 22 or 23 when they beat LSU over there.
I may have told you this story before. In 94, the first year they played it in Atlanta, they played the first 2 years in Birmingham. Mm-hmm. Two of my buddies and I went down, and we were going to buy tickets. It was a rainy, cold day. We said if we can find 3 tickets together for $100 a piece or less, we'll buy them. Nobody was selling tickets. We went back to my buddy's apartment, ordered a Domino's pizza, watched the game on TV. That Monday morning, I called the ticket office in Birmingham and got 4 tickets. And the next 20 in a row I went to, no matter who was playing.
How about that?
We did. And my buddy, who's a Georgia fan, he kind of has got dibs on the tickets. He and his sons have gone the last however many years Georgia's gone. But you keep them, it's like master tickets. That's a pretty nice.
Yeah.
If A&M would have gone, that would have been a nice ticket to sell.
Oh, yeah.
They would have been buying those up.
But, that's right. But I'm hopeful that Georgia wins. It's problematic, though, that Drew Bobo's not going to play at center for Georgia. That might have been a factor in why the running game slowed down later in the game. When he was in there early, they were doing well running the ball, and that kind of went by the wayside late in the game. So
that was a little bit strange.
Yeah.
I mean, even with personnel changes, it was like Georgia couldn't run the ball for some reason.
Yeah.
I think Georgia's going to win.
I hope you're right. And it would go one more step toward exercising some demons, because we got to go to Tuscaloosa next year.
Yeah.
That's the way the schedule works out. Georgia goes over there next year, and to play over there. It hadn't won over there since
Pulpwood Smith?
No, that was in Birmingham.
Yeah, that's right.
Since Stafford threw it to Mikey Henderson in the overtime play, one and done. Nick Saban's first game against Georgia, Rick beat him, the only time he ever beat him. So
But that game in '84, that was probably the last 2 times they beat him in
Alabama. Somebody put online this week the last time Georgia beat Alabama in Atlanta was like 80-something years ago.
Really?
They were playing at Grant Field. It was one of those games. Georgia played a home game at Grant Field, and Sinkwich was playing for Georgia. And he rallied Georgia to a late win, and they won kind of going away 27-10, picked up a fumble late or something. And
I've talked about it before. That's unheard of to think about playing at Grant Field. And used to, Auburn would go up to Birmingham to play a home game because nobody wanted to come to
Arkansas's played home games in Fayetteville. Little Rock, as opposed to Fayetteville. And, so it happens. But, you're right. That is we would never think of doing that nowadays. But the roads are better. We have an airport. You know, all kinds of things can happen, and fans can get here when we play those games. Well, Mercer, they're still alive.
Play South Dakota.
South Dakota in Macon, right?
In Macon, yeah.
Now I don't know anything about South Dakota. Do you got any insight on them?
I don't. I was listening to some guys on the radio talk about it. I don't know what the line is on it, but I think Mercer has a chance in that game. I'd heard this afternoon there's 5 teams from the state of Georgia playing this weekend.
Yeah, Kennesaw State is still alive.
Yeah. Albany State's playing Newberry.
Okay.
In the Division II. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank. I shouldn't have said. Of course, Mercer. Georgia, and there's one more.
Kennesaw, Albany State, Georgia, Mercer. That's 4. Who would be is Valdosta State still playing?
Maybe. I shouldn't have said it if I didn't know the 5. Anyway, we'll research. I'll research that and get back to you.
All right, good deal, good deal. Well, let's talk about who's in and who's out in the playoffs. All right, would you agree these are sure things? Ohio State.
Yep.
Indiana.
Yep.
Oregon.
Yep.
Georgia.
Yep.
Ole Miss.
Yep.
Texas A&M.
Yep.
Oklahoma. Oklahoma, you're not sure about?
I mean, I think they'll get in, but I'm not sure they deserve to be in. But that's a different question, I guess.
All right.
What do you think? What do you think about Oklahoma?
Well, I'll get to that in a second. What about Texas Tech? Are they a sure thing?
Yep.
All right. How about Notre Dame?
Again, probably.
Right. How about Alabama? So if Alabama loses,
that's a good.
They'll have 3 losses, and they'll have lost to the team that they beat in the rematch. Maybe it's how big they lose. I don't know.
Then you start talking about it. You know, should they even have to play the conference championship? You know, when you've already beat somebody. And
so here's some of the other teams that are kind of on the bubble: Vanderbilt, Brigham Young. Oklahoma, you could say. Texas is on the bubble. Maybe. Somebody, Miami, they're on the bubble. Are they going to get in? So I did a little research, and I said, let's see how many stress-free minutes a team plays. In other words, when you win your game, what part of the game do you get to where, hey, we can throw our subs in. We've got this game in the bag. For example, when Georgia beat Tennessee, there were no stress-free minutes in that game.
Well, Georgia had several games like that.
Exactly. When Georgia beat Florida, it was only stress-free for the last 30 seconds.
Yeah. Auburn,
that's right, same thing. So I began to look. I said, who has played the most stress-free? And I actually calculated the number of seconds based on looking back at the play-by-play of the various teams. Now, one thing this is, it's subjective when you look back and think, when is that game stress-free? I'm making an evaluation that says that's stress-free. The other thing is, it's also could be a reflection of your schedule.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're playing a very bad team. It should be stress-free. So here's what I did. I didn't give any credit when you played a cupcake. So Georgia got no credit for Charlotte, no credit for Austin Peay, no credit for Marshall. I didn't give them any credit for any stress-free seconds in that game. Now, guess which team on my calculations had the most stress-free seconds this season?
I'm just in awe that you came up with that and researched that.
Notre Dame.
Really?
Notre Dame, according to my calculations, has played 11,506 stress-free seconds this year. So 11,500 divided by 60, I don't have my calculator, figure that out, so many hours and minutes and seconds, but that's far and away. Second is Ohio State. They've got,
I was going to say Ohio State,
9,200 stress-free seconds. Then comes Indiana, 7,600. Then comes Texas Tech right behind them, 7,500. Then Oregon, 7,000. Then Miami, 6,800. Notice anything that I left out there so far?
Help me. A&M?
No Southeastern Conference team.
No Southeastern Conference team.
So see, again, that's a reflection
yes.
of the strength of schedule.
I get the point, yep.
So, but here's a surprise. The Southeastern Conference team with the most stress-free moments this year, Vanderbilt.
I was going to say, that was a wild guess.
5,959 stress-free seconds for Vanderbilt. Then you get to A&M, and it's a drop-off of 3,266. Then you get to Georgia, then Brigham Young at 2,900, Ole Miss at 2,000. Alabama's way down at 1,900 stress-free seconds. When you think about the games that they've had this year.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the way I calculate that, I also subtracted from their stress-free times the amount of stress-free time their opponents got. So like Florida State, they had a couple of minutes of stress-free playing against Alabama. That counts against Alabama.
Oh, okay.
So that's the way that works there. Now, Georgia and their loss to Alabama only had a minute or so that Alabama could just coast.
Yeah.
So they didn't lose a lot in that way, but they also didn't gain much against Auburn, against Florida, against Tennessee. So if you look at that, then Notre Dame, based on that, you would say they deserve to be in. Now, you could say they played a terrible schedule, but they didn't really play any cupcakes. They didn't play anybody.
Played a bunch of mediocres.
Right, that's right. They played teams like Purdue, they're not good, but it's a Power 4 conference team. You can't say that's a cupcake. They played Stanford, which has not had a good year. So using that as a calculation, then Notre Dame would be in, but so would Miami. They would be in. And then Vanderbilt would actually be in over Alabama and over Texas. Texas was only 938 because, think about it, they had 2 overtime games.
That's right.
You don't get any credit for an overtime game. There's no stress-free time in an overtime game. So that's just one way to think about it and calculate it. Oklahoma way down at 467 stress-free times because you think about it, they had a lot of close games this year. So the committee's not going to look at all that stuff, I don't think. I wish there was a way that you could factor that in. I think it's a legitimate way to measure the strength of a team is how quickly in a game they can put the other team away.
Well, that's a great point. I think there's when you look, I'm looking over there at your list. I mean, I think there's 5 or 6 teams that are more deserving than everybody else, just based on the schedule they play, the conference they're in, and their record, who they are.
Yeah.
And, what you do with Vandy or Oklahoma, I don't know. I personally just kind of don't like Oklahoma. I don't know why. Notre Dame, everybody loves to hate them, I mean,
I've always been against Notre Dame.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think Texas Tech would be a scary team to play.
I do too.
A ton about them. But I just, my point is Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, Georgia, Alabama, maybe Ole Miss, and then you got some down there at the bottom. I don't know what I think about Miami. I don't know what to think about them.
I know. Well, they had their chance. I mean, and they lost some games that show up as, quote, bad losses, but they were close. Those were close games that they lost. And Notre Dame, in the games they lost to Miami and to Texas A&M, both of those games were very, very close. Yeah. So even in their losses, they've been right in the game. So it's just an interesting exercise to try to figure out who belongs in and who doesn't. Of course, we're making this recording before the college football rankings come out tonight after the rivalry weekend, and we're anticipating that Georgia will go up to 3 and Texas A&M will go up to 4, and then after that, I don't know. What is Alabama going to get a bump because they beat Auburn? Oklahoma won their game against LSU, but that's a game came down to the end. I mean, Oklahoma couldn't relax until the last 30 seconds.
Do you think this may be getting a little away from where you're going? Do you think the committee will punish Ole Miss for not having their coach, like they punished Florida State for not having their quarterback?
I read somebody had a commentary on that. I don't think they will.
I heard today Weiss, the offensive coordinator, who I guess is going to LSU, but is coming back and going to coach during the playoffs.
So they're going to let him coach there.
Maybe he's not going to LSU. That's what I initially heard he was, but I heard this afternoon he's going back. That's a big deal, you know, as a play caller.
It is a big deal. And you figure, of course, Mark Richt, he stayed at Florida State all the way through the playoffs, and they lost against Oklahoma, I think, in the finals, while he was accepted the Georgia job. And I think he later said it was probably a mistake for him to do that. Whether it was a mistake for Florida State or a mistake for Georgia, I don't know which way it worked out. What do you think? A lot of the national pundits have said, let Lane coach them through the playoffs. What do you think?
Well, the Tulane coach is coaching them this week. That's going to Florida.
Okay.
I think that's right. We probably could talk for hours about Kiffen.
Mm-hmm.
I said to myself, you know, I feel sorry for the players, and then I thought again. I said, well, maybe I don't. Half his team left another school to come get paid and played for him.
Yeah.
Some of them will be playing for him at LSU or somewhere else next year.
I fully expect Austin Simmons, the backup quarterback, to go to LSU next year.
So I don't know if I feel sorry for the players or not. I think it stinks. It's the system we got. But after it was all said and done, you kind of look at it and you think, well, no way he could have really stayed and coached them, could he?
I don't think he could have. I mean, he says he put forth various scenarios of how he could make it work. But there's just too many questions there. I'm reminded when Michigan, their basketball coach, went to Arizona, and Bo Schembechler said, a Michigan man's going to coach Michigan in the playoffs. And that Michigan man, they won the national championship, while their old coaches down at Arizona wishing, look, I could have had a ring.
Yeah.
Now, I heard a rumor that somebody said LSU, if Ole Miss wins the national championship, will pay Lane Kiffen a bonus.
I saw that too.
Why would they do that?
Well, I guess I don't know. Maybe that had something to do with getting him to commit to come and the timing and all that.
Now, somebody asked today, would they send a ring to Lane Kiffen? I think not.
Well, I mean, you know it better than I do, but whatever you think about Kiffen, he's in a no-win situation with that. I mean, he's kind of a victim of his own success. He couldn't. I mean, people leave and go to better jobs and whatever, and just the timeline, the way everything's set up in college football, you can't. That thing couldn't play out without somebody getting a raw deal.
Well, you know, people have talked a lot about the college football calendar being messed up. How could we fix it?
Well, I've heard some scenarios. I'm sure you have too. You know, make it more like the NFL from the standpoint of, I mean, you know, the whole recruiting calendar, the transfer portal, even spring practice plays into that.
Yeah.
The year-round nature of things. I don't know how to fix it, but stuff like that does not happen in the NFL.
Well, the NFL can make contracts and hold teams in such a way that college football can't, because college football, nobody's got that kind of power over the schools and everything. I think that one thing they could do is move the high school signing back to February. Absolutely. Like it used to be.
Yep.
Do away with the early signing period, because now teams feel like we have to get somebody in before that December date. And, you know, there was a boatload of coaches hired on Sunday because Wednesday is signing day. And I see the Arkansas coach has already been busy. I've seen him recruit a couple of guys to get some flips and everything because they want to get somebody in. If it was in February, you would have some more time to be able to go and knock on doors and make a legitimate pitch to high school players. So that's one idea. Now, what about the guys that are going to enroll early? That you still would have that factor, and a good many of them are doing that.
Yeah.
So that's not going to totally solve the problem. They've already changed the transfer portal window. There's just one a year now. But interesting change in that. They did say you cannot transfer when your coach leaves until 15 days after your school has hired a new coach.
Yeah.
So now all these schools are on the clock to see whether any of these guys want to transfer and leave. But boy, it was a busy weekend with coaching changes, wasn't it?
It was. And something you just said is simple, but it's so true. Nobody has the power in college football.
Yeah.
Everybody says, well, let's make it more like the NFL. Nobody has the power. Everybody's not created equal in college sports.
No.
In the conferences, the individual schools. And, I heard Steve Spurrier say it multiple times. It's a simple statement, but, college football is not fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I mean, to certain teams. I mean, he kind of lived it. He said, my life's a lot different when I'm with Florida versus
South Carolina.
Yeah, because the money. You compare it to the pros. You talk about salary cap and all this. And now with the NIL, it's just ridiculous. But coaching changes.
All right, let's talk about that when we come back. We'll be back here on Sidelines and Headlines. Just remember, folks, you can always subscribe to us on the various platforms in which you listen to your podcast. That includes YouTube. Be sure to like us, tell everybody else about us. Send us an email, sidelinesheadlines@gmail.com, and give us some feedback. We'd love to hear from you.
Apple Podcast, Spotify.
Yeah,
share us on
wherever you
Facebook.
get your podcast, you can find us. So
thank y'all for watching.
Yeah, we'll be back in a minute here on Sidelines and Headlines. Hey, I'm Blake Giles.
I'm Jim Hardin.
It's Sidelines
and Headlines.
And what a weekend it was for coaching changes. It's been building and building and building, and it hit an apex this weekend. And I guess the landslide started with Mr. Lane Kiffen on his exit from Ole Miss to LSU. And I was showing you this picture. We saw this earlier this week. Somebody was holding this sign up at the Egg Bowl. Oxford population going down by 1. Of course, I guess he's not taking his family with him, whoever made that sign. I didn't think about that. And then it was interesting. I saw on X today, somebody sent a post out. It said, Whit Weeks is going to transfer from Ole Miss. And then there was a note, this is a parody account. There's nothing that confirms this. That as far as he's already said, he's glad that Kiffen is coming. Of course, he's been dating Kiffen's daughter, Landry's. We've known about that since mid-season. But so your team, Auburn, they, of course, got rid of Hugh Freeze and brought in Alex Golish?
Golish. His family are immigrants from the Soviet Union.
No
Can we
kidding.
trust those communist coaches?
Well, he was at South Florida, and earlier in the year, South Florida was getting some love as maybe they'd be that group of 5 team that might get into the playoffs. What do you know about Alex?
I don't know. I just realized a little while ago, I got on a USF shirt. My wife, Jackie, ran the school store at North Oconee High School for 25 years. And so I got all kind of extra stuff. She got samples. And I didn't even think about it.
How about that?
In support of Coach Golish, who's now at Auburn. To be honest, I didn't know anything about him. I mean, I knew a little bit about him. I'd heard his name, but the more I read about him, I'm excited. We learned this afternoon, Durkin, the defensive coordinator, staying.
Okay.
Auburn's defense has been very good the last couple of years. I guess I don't have a choice. I have to be optimistic.
Well, the things I read about him, he has a good reputation as an offensive coach, and he has a good reputation as a recruiter. And he's relatively familiar with the area and as far as recruiting goes. And so that would be something that would be valuable for Auburn. So we'll see how that works out. All right, Arkansas got rid of Sam Pittman in the midseason, and they announced Sunday they're bringing in Ryan Silverfield, who was the head coach at Memphis. You got any feedback on Ryan Silverfield?
I read a little bit about him. I don't have a feeling one way or the other on that. I don't know. people say Arkansas's got a lot of money. Arkansas holds a little bit of, I don't know, weird national appeal somehow, some way, I think. But I don't know. They're in a bad spot in the pecking order. I think it's going to be tough for them to.
Well, of course, they wound up this year at the bottom of the league, did not get a league win. But, I mean, they came close numerous times, almost beat Texas A&M and Texas, I think. And so they had some close losses.
I like Sam Pittman. Everybody likes Sam Pittman. But
and they had a good quarterback this year, I thought. Green. But the only thing I found out about Silverfield is he's relatively familiar with Arkansas area. I mean, Memphis is not that far away, and I'm sure he's recruited the area. And he'll have some connections in Memphis to bring some guys there. And I've already seen he's flipped a running back, and he's got a tight end coming in. He's got some guys that are high on the list to come to Arkansas. And if they can tap in some of that Walmart and Tyson chicken money, maybe they can get a good NIL program going and get some players in and compete. All right, Florida. They got rid of Billy Napier. They're bringing in John Sumrall from Tulane. He's been a winner on the group of 5, but so had Billy Napier. He's coming from Louisiana. So did Billy Napier. There's a lot of similarities there. What's the difference with Sumrall and Billy Napier?
I was hoping, I'd been reading up on him, I was hoping he'd be the guy at Auburn.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people were expecting.
What I hear, I mean, who knows? I think he and Golish at Auburn both sort of won the press conference.
Okay.
Now, everybody sort of wins the press conference.
Sure.
Pat Dye famously said when they hired him at Auburn, they hadn't beaten Alabama in 9 years. They asked him how long it was going to take him to beat Alabama. He said 60 minutes. and that was something, people look back on that. Oh, that was great. He won the press. But, if it hadn't gone so well, it wouldn't have been so who knows? My point is, we talked a little bit about this last week. Kirby, you might think he's full of crap, but he talks. The things he talks about is the things they do. It becomes reality with the program. Yeah. Spurrier, I heard him today. The team takes on the personality of their head coach. So I think it might have been a little bit of not immediately maybe, but I think it might make Georgia's life a little tougher with him at Florida, Lane at LSU, a program that can maybe win at a higher level than Ole Miss could have with him.
Somebody asked Spurrier how long it's going to take him to rebuild the program, and he said, "We don't rebuild, we just go."
Yeah, well, with the port, you just gotta that's got to be your attitude. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I think that's a good hire.
All right, Ole Miss, of course, they lost Kiffen, and they just reached onto the staff and promoted Pete Golden.
And that's a permanent deal, right?
That is. He is their defensive coordinator. He's going to be the coach for the playoffs and coming back next year. The knock on him is he's a defensive guy, and he's inexperienced, certainly as a head coach, never been a head coach. I don't know much about him, except I understand he was the lead recruiter for Ole Miss, and he was the guy that brought a lot of the players in.
He grew up in Mississippi. I've seen interviews with him. I like him. I think he's the kind of guy you can sort of envision being their coach.
He's only 39 years old, so he got a lot of energy, you would think.
I think he played maybe Delta State, just familiar with the state. If I was an Ole Miss fan, I'd probably be okay with that.
Kentucky got rid of Mark Stoops, brought in Will Stein. He was the offensive coordinator at Oregon. He has connections in Kentucky, played at Louisville, but he grew up a Kentucky fan, and his father played at Kentucky. So he feels like this is his team. And certainly what Oregon's done on offense the last several years would, if he can duplicate that, he'll certainly outdo what Stoops has been doing in recent years.
They need, I've heard, I think certain coaches, especially in today's game, people rarely stay anywhere 20, 25 years, and it's almost like Stoops just ran his course, and he was great at times.
He's the winningest coach in school history.
Yeah, but they're probably happy they got a new guy.
Virginia Tech, their old coach was Brent Pry. Did you know that? I did not know that. I had to look that up.
His name, but
of course, they brought in James Franklin from Penn State. He's a proven winner. He's won everywhere he's been. Now, the knock on him at Penn State was he couldn't win the big ones. He won't have as many big ones to win in the ACC.
I don't know. For some weird reason, I think that's kind of good for him, good for them.
I do too. Then you got Oklahoma State. They got rid of Mike Gundy, who had been there for a long time. Brought in a guy named Eric Morris. You know anything about Eric Morris?
No,
you know where he was?
I can't.
He was at North Texas.
That's right.
Which
I heard
is
that after
which is a team that theoretically is still alive to get into the playoffs. He's familiar with the region at least.
Where's he from originally?
I don't know.
Texas guy?
I don't know. Then Stanford, they got rid of their coach Troy Taylor last spring. They had Frank Reich as an interim coach all year, and this year they brought in a guy named Tavita Pritchard. He was the Washington Commanders quarterback coach most recently. He coached at Stanford previously. He's a Stanford man who played at Stanford. He understands the Stanford culture, so maybe he's the right hire. Who knows?
Well, I think that's one of those schools where you have to understand the culture probably to be successful.
And he's got Andrew Luck as his general manager.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So maybe Luck can get him some money. UCLA got rid of Deshaun Foster and brought in Bob Chesney of James Madison. Of course, the last James Madison coach, Kurt Cignetti, has ignited Indiana. Is this guy another Cignetti? Who knows? He's not particularly familiar with the West Coast, as I understand it, so he'll have a learning curve there.
That's another unique.
Yeah.
Any of those programs in California out there.
And then Michigan State.
Pat Fitzgerald, what do you think about that?
Yeah, this guy's been out of coaching since 23 at Northwestern and got fired because of a hazing controversy. Then he filed a lawsuit. Didn't he win his lawsuit?
I think he did. I've heard interviews with other coaches over the years, and he seemed like a guy that had a lot of respect from other guys that knew what it took to be a good coach. I just always thought Pat Fitzgerald, you're at Northwestern, you're probably not going to win it at a level. Maybe you.
Did you see where Northwestern's building a brand new stadium?
I saw, yeah.
They got a donor to give like $800 million. And they're building a new stadium on the site of the old stadium. You know, they had a temporary stadium this year, and they actually played one game at Wrigley Field. But I was reading about this new stadium. The upper deck seat, the furthest, highest seat, is only like 160 feet away from the sideline, which is compared to others, is like half the distance of other stadiums.
How many seats is it going?
It's only going to seat 35,000. Every seat's going to be purple cushioned seat. So it will be they're trying to make it a enjoyable experience so you come back whether Northwestern's any good or not.
Isn't that kind of what happened at Oklahoma State? It's been a long time. At T. Boone Pickens, did he build that stadium or did they just name it after him?
I think he did, yeah. I remember when Oklahoma State came to Athens to play a game and T. Boone Pickens was in the press box. I remember the UGA president Mike Adams making sure he could schmooze up to T. Boone Pickens just to see if there might be some extra cash might fall out of his pocket toward UGA's way.
He was one you need to smooth up to.
And then of course the one that we haven't talked too much about, or maybe too much. Anyway, of course Lane Kiffen is the new coach at LSU after the firing of Brian Kelly. Is Lane Kiffen the guy to bring them to the promised land? What do you think?
Well, I'm not going to say that I'm in love with Lane Kiffen, but I do. I always say it's the modern game is an offensive game. He's an offensive coach. Mm-hmm. He's done well having his finger on the pulse of the quarterback and the offense. If he hires a good defensive coach, I mean, you may disagree. I think LSU, I mean, if Orgeron and Les Miles can win a national title at LSU, I think he certainly can.
Yeah, well, of course, Nick Saban resurrected that program because before Nick Saban had been there, LSU was respected, but not great. I mean, they'd had some good years back in the 50s.
Yeah.
Remember Paul Dietzel and the Chinese Bandits. Remember that?
I've read articles. That a little before my time.
It was before my time, too. I never did understand exactly what that was. I think that was during the one platoon era.
Yeah.
And this was a group of players that they would play both ways.
They won the national championship in like 58 or something.
I think they did. Billy Cannon won the Heisman Trophy winner down there, and everything. And of course, Joe Burrow has won the Heisman Trophy. Didn't he win it up there under Brian Kelly?
He did.
So they've had some Heisman Trophy winners, and certainly they've come to Athens with great teams. And you think of the Aaron Murray game they played here when Zach Mettenberger was the quarterback, and a local kid who grew up in Athens and wound up being a 48-45, something like that. Thriller went down to the end. So, I mean, LSU is a great place to be.
Well, they just have great potential. It's like, we talk about it all the time. Georgia was good for the most part for 41 years, but they weren't maybe great. I mean, that's kind of LSU's had some great. I mean, they've won 3 national championships in the last 25 years.
And, of course, they've got such a reputation of Death Valley being such a difficult place to play in. Everybody talks about it. Now, I've been there once. I went there in 78. Georgia played in Death Valley in 1978. That was when Lindsey Scott ran a 96-yard kickoff back in the second half.
Georgia won.
Georgia won the game. It was 24-17 win. Local kid, Danny Rogers from Cedar Shoals, got a fumble late to seal the win for Georgia. And my impression of the stadium was I was underwhelmed. Now, maybe it was because Georgia did so well, they kind of kept the crowd.
You're talking about the crowd or the stadium itself?
The crowd. I was underwhelmed by the crowd. But that's just my one experience there. But, Kiffen talked about the times he's been there was off the charts. I mean, he said...
I've been there. It's off the charts. And I tell you, my son and I, we had this thing. We'd go every year in spring break when he was growing up. We'd go to different college towns, and our goal was always to sneak in the stadium. The stadium. Somebody left a gate open or something. And I'm telling you, and it's bigger now than it was in '78. I guess they've improved it. This a few years ago. But speaking of Chinese, man, if the Chinese ever invade us, you want to be inside.
Tiger Stadium.
I mean, it's like in the same way at Bryant-Denny. I mean, it's like you can't get in there. We're trying to get in and get out on the field and take a picture. I mean, but it's so massive and it's really impressive. I can't explain it.
Do they still have dorm rooms on the outside?
They do. And it's just different than Sanford Stadium or Jordan Hare. But it's just a massive place, and it's loud. I mean, I wouldn't want to live down there in that muggy place, but I think they got potential to be good.
Well, they've certainly got a fan base that is loyal, and of course they're the one big school in that state. I mean, there's other schools, Louisiana Monroe, all those different schools, but LSU is the school that everybody grows up thinking that's where I want to be.
Yeah. If you're born in that state and you're a football fan and you don't have an allegiance to some other school, you're a Tiger.
Yeah. All right. Well, tomorrow's a big day in college football. It's recruiting day. And the guys will be going on the dotted line. I looked at a ranking of where the schools were ranked in recruiting, and going into the day, Georgia was ranked number 2, but that ranking was before the news that broke today, and you know what I'm talking about.
Going to Vandy.
Yeah, the quarterback, Jared Curtis, the 5-star that has been the bell cow of the recruiting class, has reportedly flipped and is going to go to Vanderbilt now. And reading about why he's going, I think he's going just because he thinks he can play right away.
Yeah. Well, he's going because he's seen what.
Yeah, that's right. If Vanderbilt had not been as well, I don't know that he would have gone. But if he comes to Georgia, he's not going to play next year.
Yeah.
I mean, Gunnar Stockton's going to be the quarterback next year. And then is he going to beat out Ryan Puglisi or Ryan, what's the other Ryan's name? Montgomery. Is he going to beat those guys out?
Yeah.
I don't know. But this has happened to Georgia before. The Bulldogs swing for the fences when it comes to recruiting quarterbacks, and then the last minute they lose them. Dylan Raiola went to Nebraska. Yeah. They managed to get Justin Fields, but he didn't play long. And
I just think Georgia's that wouldn't bother me at all if I was a Georgia fan. Georgia, you're gonna have a good, barring injury, you're gonna have good quarterback play next year. You're grooming some other guys that are obviously talented. I think Georgia's fortunate enough to be in that group of schools where, they should have a good quarterback.
Yeah. Well,
no matter who it is.
That's right. Well, he was one of only 2 5-stars that I think that Georgia had. The other 5-star that's coming in is Valden Sone, S-O-N-E. I don't know if I'm saying that right. He's a defensive lineman out of Blue Ridge School in Virginia. Is a 5-star. And the rankings I saw with Curtis committing now to Vanderbilt drops Georgia down to number 6 in the recruiting rankings as they come out. This is looking at what they've got under commitments. One, quote, athlete. I don't know why they call him that, athlete. I guess they hadn't figured out whether they're going to play him. And then they've got 3 cornerbacks. They got 5 defensive linemen, 3 edge players, a kicker, a punter, 1 inside linebacker, 4 offensive linemen, only 1 running back, 2 safeties, 3 tight ends, and 3 wide receivers. That's what they've got on the commitment of about 27, 28 players. And so we'll find out tomorrow how many of those sign on the dotted line, and are there going to be other flips? I mean, it always happens at the last minute that people decide, I think I'm going to go there. And now you got that extra thing about the money.
Oh, yeah.
How much is on the table?
Did you see, speaking of recruiting, did you see Kiffen's speech at LSU?
Where he introduced as a coach? I heard it. I did not see it.
Well, I didn't hear it all, but I just know a big portion of it had to do with, our goal, not talking about what he's going to do on the field. Our goal is to bring the most talented football players.
Yeah.
And that's just that's.
And when I was listening to it, it was on the Feinbaum show. They went in and cut in live, and you could hear it. And there were times there was applause in the background. And I'm thinking, I thought this was a press conference.
Yeah.
The media is not going to be up there applauding. Somebody else was there to applaud. I guess it was administrators and things like that who were, or maybe supporters even, who would come in there and applaud.
I have no idea about the rankings. It'd be interesting to see who they sign and get in the portal.
Well, of course, that's the other thing now with the transfer portal. This is only part of the recruiting, and some teams build mainly through transfers, and some teams build mainly through high school recruiting, and some are more balanced. Georgia, from my understanding, tried to recruit Fernando Mendoza, who's up in Indiana and having a great year. They tried to recruit the guy who's at Southern Cal. I can't think of his name.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and as a quarterback. And they'll probably go out and see and look on the transfer portal and see, is there a quarterback we can bring in? I mean, they like to have a stacked quarterback room.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And you can't argue with that. I mean, you look what happened when we thought we were set with Jacob Eason. He gets hurt. It's a good thing we had Jake Fromm. And then we thought we were set when we had Daniels. It's a good thing we had Stetson Bennett,
Well, we talked about it several times this year, and I always just, when you start talking about that, pops into my mind what great quarterback play Clemson had with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, and how different their program is when they have not. Dabo is the head coach. I mean, in today's game, you got to have a quarterback.
Oh, yeah. It makes such a difference. I mean, this is on the other end of the spectrum. Syracuse, earlier this year, was a respectable, competitive team. But their quarterback got hurt, and they wound up losing it to Notre Dame 70-7.
Yeah.
They just didn't have anything else in the pipeline to fill that position. How good was Oklahoma without John Mateer? At Auburn, it took them a while to settle in and find the right quarterback.
Well, speaking of Auburn, I've heard people talking already. Auburn's got a talented roster.
They do.
So okay, we got this offensive coach. We got supposedly these hotshot offensive players that are on the roster. can they retain them? You know, that's probably the biggest thing they're trying to do, rather than recruiting high school this year. Is just can we hold our current roster together?
Exactly. Because I looked at the list here, and of the top 75 schools as far as recruiting goes, and Auburn is not doing too well. They're ranked number 54 in high school recruiting. Their top prospect is a wide receiver named Jace Matthews, and the top defensive prospect, a linebacker named Jaquez Wilkes. And they've kind of dropped here, and so we'll see what they can do. The number one recruiting program in the country right now, you know who it is?
Ohio State?
Southern Cal.
Really?
Lincoln Riley's having an excellent year out there. They say here he's got 18 of the top 300 commits in the country coming into Southern Cal. So, I mean, he's got a good reputation as a recruiter.
Well, he's got a good reputation as an offensive coach.
He sure does.
I mean, you would think they would somehow, some way, at some point be putting up big numbers like he did at Oklahoma and competing for a title.
The other schools that were really ranked high, Texas, Notre Dame, Oregon, Texas A&M, Ohio State, Alabama, Miami, Michigan. There's no surprises there.
What, Texas Tech?
Texas Tech is not ranked that high this year. They built their program coming in with the transfer portal.
Well, yeah, but I was curious.
They're number 19 on this list.
Yeah, which may not matter because they may just keep supplementing it with the
Tennessee 11, then Florida State, North Carolina number 13. So Bill Belichick is doing a good job in high school recruiting. Then you get to Florida, then LSU down at 15. And of course, all of this is under old staffs. Will there be a bump when the new guy comes in, and how quickly can they get to these prospects? How many prospects can you talk to in a 48-hour period?
I know. That's what, that just would be the part of that job that would be awful. I mean, you're on your phone talking to 17-year-old kids constantly. I mean, I guess they get paid well to do it.
You know, when I was a sports writer for the local paper and interviewing high school athletes, it was always a toss-up whether the guy would be mature enough and lucid enough to be able to carry on a conversation and answer questions and be mature. Lots of times they don't know how to converse with an adult. And so it was difficult sometimes to get an interview and get a good story. I'm always impressed when I read these recruiting stories that these guys, that's what they do. They cover recruiting, and they get interesting stories out of these guys because I know how difficult it is to pull something out of them sometimes. Now, sometimes you run across guys, they're just naturally loquacious and they know how to talk. This is a weird example. It's not an athlete. My oldest grandson, his girlfriend, I call her an old soul because she is very comfortable talking to adults and conversing on a different level than just talking with teenagers. And sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
So it's unusual and rare. So all that's going to shake out Wednesday with recruiting, and we'll just see how it plays out, everything.
Have you, I can't help it. We got to talk about high school for just a minute.
Sure. You want to talk about Gainesville?
Well, I do, because that's been, I'm probably just, it doesn't speak well to my personality. I've gotten so worked up about that whole deal. And I don't really, nobody.
You don't have a dog in the fight.
I don't have a dog in the fight, and probably there's some stuff going on behind the scenes that I don't know. But first, kind of the area schools around Athens had a rough.
Yeah, they did. They did. Of course, now we talk about Mercer being in the playoffs. There's a running back over at Hebron Christian who's going to Mercer next year, Devon Caldwell.
He's the guy
He had 347 yards against the Wolverines. It was funny, Hebron Christian, it was a 40-degree night when we kicked off, and their players came out without their shirts on for the warm-ups. And I said, well, the Wolverines, they saw his biceps, his pecs, and his six-pack, but then after the game started, they saw the backside. Because he broke free for 6 long touchdown runs. And I kept wondering, why is this kid not on the radar of bigger schools? And the only thing I can figure out, he's only 5'9", and it could be his size is what has dissuaded teams from going after him. But here's what could happen. He could go down to Mercer and play a year and tear it up and wind up the next year in the SEC.
Playing for LSU.
Yeah, but that Hebron Christian they eliminated the Wolverines 63-20. It's the most points they've ever given up in a football game. And it was actually close late in the first half. Prince Avenue was trailing 29-14 at the time. And they stopped Hebron Christian deep in their own territory. They got them to punt. Unfortunately, and there's about 2 minutes to go in the half, and they're thinking, wow, we got a chance to come down and score, come within one score. Then we get the second half kickoff, and if we can score then, it's anybody's game. Well, the ball hit one of the Prince Avenue blocking backs. Never saw it coming, and Hebron recovered at midfield. 2 plays later, they score.
That was it.
Well, then they get another touchdown in the first half. They score 42 points in the first half.
Yeah, I was reading about it.
And so then it's game is over then. So it was it was decisive win. I really don't see anybody beating Hebron Christian. They got Greater Atlanta Christian this week.
You've been saying that since early in the year.
Who beat Athens Academy decisively.
Which I was surprised at how decisive that was.
49-14. It surprised me too. Now, I don't know much about Greater Atlanta Christian, but I know about Athens Academy. They've got some breakaway guys, but Greater Atlanta Christian really put it on them.
Of course, North Oconee got beat by Marist.
Did you see how the game ended? Marist kicked a field goal last play of the game.
I didn't even know that. I don't know.
A 35-yard field goal, walk-off field goal. How often does that happen?
I know. I didn't even. I talked to a couple people about it, but I didn't even know how that.
Yeah, and actually, there was another high school game in the playoffs that ended with a walk-off field goal as well. So and then Jackson County
got beat by
their season came to the end. Rome beat them, and it was a Cinderella season for them. And they're delighted up there. I'm sure they're disappointed, but I saw a list today. They put out the all-region team. They had the player of the year, the coach of the year, the offensive player of the year. I mean, they just had a great year up there, and hopefully it's not just a flash in the pan, that it's a program that's going to be legit going on down the line.
Well, I hope so too. I'm going, I say I'm going. The weather's supposed to be terrible Friday. I was excited about going up and seeing Jefferson play West Lawrence. I think I might have mentioned Coach Dan Pitts, his grandson, his mama's a good friend of mine. He's the coach at West Lawrence.
Oh, okay.
They're undefeated, and they're coming to Jefferson,
Well, they got that running back, Ty Cummings, who had over 600 yards in one game.
Well over 2,000, which he should have after that one game.
Yeah.
But I hope the weather, I haven't been as good about going to games. I love going to high school football games, but hopefully if it's not pouring out rain and freezing cold, I'm going to try to go. But
well, Jefferson had to come back. They were trailing.
They were down big.
Like 21-0.
They played Cairo, I think.
And came back and won that game. So a good win for them.
Well, we were joking a minute ago, the Gainesville deal.
Yeah.
And I guess our discussion about that last week is nowhere to be found since our microphones weren't working. But they suspended the GHSA, suspended whatever it was.
34 players eventually was the number suspended.
And they had a hearing. They reinstated 4.
Oh, it was 39, and then they reinstated 4. So yeah, something like that.
And then Gainesville filed a whatever in court in Hall County, and an injunction, whatever. And then the GHSA challenged that. And then they had a hearing yesterday, and I think the GHSA finally said uncle, and all the Gainesville.
They said, I read that they looked back, and Gainesville brought up this point, that there was a game earlier this year that they had not suspended the players who were involved.
It was down in Macon.
Yeah, West Side against, I forget who was.
Central Macon and Northeast Macon, maybe.
Okay.
Anyway.
And so they said they had been inconsistent in what they were doing, and so they decided, okay, you guys can play. Of course, that's backed up
that's the crazy part.
The playoffs by a week, and they've got it figured out. They're going to be able to finish the season basically on time. They just moved the 6A and is this 5A? The
5A,
games, yeah, they just move the 6A and 5A around a little bit, and as far as the finals go, and they'll play. So Gainesville will have its full complement of players when they play this week in the playoffs.
Well, they also said one of the things the Gainesville side brought up on the deal was you can't, in order to be suspended for a game, you had to have been ejected from the previous game, which is kind of the rule in college. I mean, I don't know how the argument on that was, but you and I talked about it. We talked about it a little bit last week. I'm normally not in favor of the government being involved in anything, but there needs to be some oversight with the GHSA. I feel like they make some decisions and they say, well, that's just the letter of the law. Well, that's true in our legal system. We have judges and juries, and every situation is not cut and dry. And I just don't think that situation was cut and dry. I don't think what they were about to do to Gainesville was fair. And again, I don't really have a dog in the fight. What do you think?
Well, maybe they should set up an arbitration system that they bring in somebody who's, quote, not connected to the schools or to the Georgia High School Association administration that says, looks at this and comes to a decision, instead of taking it to court where you get lawyers involved and judges and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was resolved, and I think both sides are, I don't know if they're satisfied. It's done with. They're going to move on. I imagine the Georgia High School Association will look at this and maybe come up with more clear-cut rules as to how they would approach it in the future.
I had a very minor thing years ago, it having to do with my daughter's volleyball eligibility. She changed schools, had a hearing. They ruled against us, which wasn't a big deal. She was a ninth grader. She played JV volleyball. But at the time, I was so upset about not the fact she was ineligible, just kind of the way I was treated and the way it all went down. And I remember driving back to Macon from Thomaston from the hearing. I was on the phone. I was calling everybody that was somebody I knew, state representative. Talked to a couple of state representatives. Jim Cole, the athletic director at Mercer, who had been a state representative, and they all said, we get calls like this all the time. And all of them said, we need to figure out a way for the Georgia High School Association to have oversight, because they make decisions that, frankly, piss people off every day. And they're a lot, like my deal was insignificant, but it's like, I don't know. I just feel like there's a little bit of weird lack of accountability or something there.
Hey, let's finish up on a discussion with one more high school football game. Carrollton beat Grayson, the #1 team in the country, and beat them pretty convincingly.
That game
34-14.
That game was on TV, and I was watching a little bit of it, and I was, watching. I guess the A&M game was on or whatever. And the next morning, I saw what happened. I'm like, I'm crazy. I should have watched every play. That was great. I mean, great for Carrollton.
Yeah.
I mean, the game really wasn't even close.
Yeah. So how is it the #1 team gets beat by 20?
I know.
Well, did you have a good Thanksgiving, Jim?
I did. I ate too much caramel cake. That was my booger.
I want to ask you about rabbit stew.
I saw that in the Rotary News.
You put that in your Rotary opinion survey that was the star of your Thanksgiving meal. Now, is that a joke or is it a real dish?
Well, I have eaten rabbit stew a few times, but did I say rabbit or squirrel?
Squirrel stew. I'm sorry, you did say squirrel stew.
Yeah, I've eaten squirrel stew. We had a group down in the country, it's actually down near West Lawrence High School, that used to, about once a month on Thursday night, would cook squirrel stew. I think it was a bunch of old men that they called it choir practice, just to get away from their wives, But they would cook squirrel stew, and I actually partook in eating squirrel stew a few times until I found a squirrel in my toilet one day, and I gave up squirrel.
Well, isn't a squirrel just a rodent with a fluffy tail?
That's what I always knew that, but when one came down through my vent pipe and I found its way into my toilet, I swore off squirrel at that point.
Yeah. Now I've eaten rabbit. I've eaten rabbit mull from time to time, but not squirrel stew. Well, if anybody's interested in the recipe for squirrel stew, send an email to sidelinesheadlines@gmail.com, and Jim will get you the recipe.
I got it.
And you can test it yourself.
You did a little research on that, but I've got another recipe. Yours recipe was actually a little more fancy, I think, than the one that we had. It was pretty basic, but it was okay with a little gravy and biscuits. So anyway.
All right. Hey, next week it will be time to talk about the college football playoffs and all the championship games, and so we'll have a lot on our plate next week. So in the meantime, we hope that God is good to you and you have a great time, and that your team wins, whoever it is. And be sure to tell everybody about Sidelines and Headlines.
Thank you for watching. Watch it, like us, share us, watch us. Thank you.
All right, we'll be back next week. Sayonara.